All right, welcome guys to UAP Society live stream, exciting live stream. Welcome to all our viewers. We have Carl the Crusher coming on board, Dan Zignal, going to be awesome, and Vinnie Adams. So excited to have all these guys on. So many exciting things. So I'll just bring on Carl the Crusher. Man, thanks for being here, Carl. How have you been doing, bro?
It's a pleasure being here. I've been doing awesome. Just been processing everything from our trip up to Mount Wilson that we had and still going through all of that footage and everything that we got. It's been great.
Yeah, I had like 30 gigs. It's just so much footage, man. Amazing footage, though. Really good stuff coming out.
Yeah,
So
it's been so cool. I've got mountains of it too. I'm still going through it all.
cool. All right, we'll just bring on next Dan Z. Let's bring on Dan. He's out traveling the world.
Hi.
Yeah,
Thank you
down
so
in
much for
Mexico,
having me,
last I
guys.
saw. Welcome.
Yeah, that's right, Mexico City. I'm just near Centro, which is where all the kind of basically the center of Mexico City. And it blows my mind that there are so many just Mayan ruins around that are just, you trip over them kind of getting a Starbucks. And it's so matter of fact here, that history that's built in. It's just on the surface, and we don't really have anything like that in the UK. So it's an amazing experience, and it blows my mind.
Yeah, excellent. And our final here, we got final Vinnie Adams. Let's bring on Vinnie Adams. Welcome, mate.
What's up, guys? Good to see you, man. And this is really quite strange for me because I've been following Carl's work on Mount Wilson for so long now. And then seeing Chris, you get involved as well. Like literally, I've been watching you so many nights. I feel like this is like surreal to me. So it's so good to be here, man. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so cool. And all you guys are UAP Society, basically founding members. You were there right from the beginning, all ambassadors. So I think it's cool just to bring you guys back in once in a while and just check in and see what cool stuff you're doing, because I can't keep up, to be honest. I was there with Carl at Mount Wilson, and then I know Dan, I see your Instagram posts, I see your Twitter stuff all, traveling through Mexico City, what I saw last, and then Vinny with all the UAP UK stuff. So yeah, just great to get you guys back in, just have a, casual discussion on what's been going on and what you've been up to. So yeah, that's it. Mount Wilson you mentioned. So what are your questions, Vinny? I guess what do you have on Mount Wilson?
Dude, like the one thing that I've really found is that I'm learning so much about the history of it. I mean, I learned this back when Carl first started going out there, and I was like, whoa, the relations to what we've been looking at for the last few years when it comes to Skinwalker, and that was just mind blowing. But I love the way Carl presents his stuff. So Carl, I love that, man. Like, it's so professionally done. It comes at it from the right attitude as well. And I love the fact that it also shows that I like seeing that behind the scenes and the way that Carl walks around room to room, from when he first gets there and stuff like that. It just shows this kind of, it just put me there. It put me there from day one. And that's why I was hooked and why I keep continuing to tune in for every single episode and show and mini documentary and everything that Carl does. And now we're seeing Mount Wilson are doing their own like social media stuff. And I feel like that's based off of what Carl did. And it's incredible. It's so, so incredible. And I can't wait to see what's next for those guys.
Yeah, Carl's been the leader of that whole effort and really built the team.
Yeah.
He built the team. He brought out Brent Stone. He convinced me to go out there. He brought in Chris Bartell for however many months, been working with him, as well as the owner, Jeff. And I think that's the whole point. I love it. Decentralized science. Carl, the whole decentralized science idea, I kind of threw it out there, but then Carl's been running with it, and he's the one kind of building the team. And so what you mentioned there is Carl trying to help them so that, now Mount Wilson can provide their own, content, can provide their own value to hopefully make some, monetary return on it. And now they can focus on it as like a professional kind of thing. It's decentralized science.
Yeah, it's what me and Dan did in Colombia earlier in the year. It's boots on the ground. We're going out and doing it for ourselves. We're not relying on anybody else. No one else is part of what we're doing. We are literally the start and the middle and the finish of the whole investigation. And we're putting ourselves out there. And then at the end of the day, the output that we're putting out, whether it be a documentary or a video or whatever, it's all down to us. Nobody is involved. And it shows that we actually care about what we're doing. And it changes things. It really does. So, yeah, I'm just stoked to see that it's happening everywhere.
What I love is that no one in this room is waiting on the UAP report for permission to go do anything. We're all out there doing it ourselves anyway. And I think it's a really great example to set. Carl, earlier in the year, you were looking at the the lights on a kind of mesa and found that there was actually quite a prosaic explanation. But the way you presented that and just went, you know what, some of these things are going to be prosaic. It doesn't mean that we're wrong. It just means that this particular thing is solved, and that's a good thing. We need to be solving things going forward, and you do that with boots on the ground work.
Yeah, I agree. I think Mount Wilson provides like a really unique opportunity, because having worked in locations like Blind Frog Ranch and especially at Skinwalker Ranch, getting invited to go there and visit and explore those places, there's so much like, you know, positive effect that goes with working at those places because there's so much attention on them, but there's also so much red tape that goes along with it. There's, you know, these TV networks and all these people involved, and even people working there, you know, that are embedded into organizations. And so it gets really convoluted and difficult to like get any progress done. Like if you wanted to just go look for petroglyphs at Skinwalker Ranch, there's a lot of like hoops you have to jump through and permission to get and all of that. And the timing has to be perfectly right to ever have that line up. And then you have this small window of opportunity to go and look around and maybe try to make a discovery, and then you have to leave again, you know? So it's very difficult to get a lot of work and progress done. And so what's interesting is when you expand the research out and say, okay, well, where did Bob Bigelow work before? They didn't just like come out of thin air. These people were involved in popping up in photographs with people out of the Stanford Research Institute that were doing remote viewing and all kinds of interesting things. And so when I started expanding that view, suddenly there's this place where we could do all this research that was looked at for the same reasons as Skinwalker Ranch, but nobody knew about it. And there it was in Nevada this whole time. And Jeff was owning it and sitting on it, waiting for the right time to see when and what to do with it. And decided now's the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that I really noticed is that every single video clip that I've seen from you guys doing your work over on that property it's all take one. There's no take two and everything. It's natural. It's that first emotional reaction to what you're seeing, or the room that you are in, or the area that you're in, and the stories that you're hearing, the things that have been found on that property. Everything is so fresh and new on every single piece that you've put out in your videos, and that really hits home when you are a viewer of that content. And man, that's like inspirational.
Yeah, that's Carl's knowledge, you know, because that's what he said is you just bring the team there and then just film like what we're doing.
Absolutely, man. It is.
They set it up, you know.
Yeah. It's not a TV shoot going, that was good, but can we just do it one more time from this angle, going, you know, with a little bit more, like none of that the whole way through. And look at Carl's numbers, man. Like it just goes to show that we, Carl, Chris, Dan, me, we can all, and anybody else watching this can go out anywhere. And if it's authentic, the work that you're doing, if it's authentic, people will pick up on that, and it will resonate with people, and it will inspire people to go out and do it themselves. So, you know, kudos to Carl and Chris and Dan.
I appreciate it, you guys. I think I ran into so much of it in other places where it gets too messy. You know, other crews come in, and camera crews and different agendas get on the table, and I didn't want anything to do with that. So it has been really cool to like have Lehto come, and Bartel and Brent Stone, and even James Keenan and other collaborators come in and see how we just do it raw like that. Because it's like we wake up in the morning, sitting there like having coffee in the dining room, and then there's just like this amazing conversation happening, and I'm like trying to catch it just with my cell phone, and that ends up being like a major piece of one of my videos. And that's just how the whole day goes, is just getting it on the fly and trying to solve problems and be like, this is a good opportunity to use this piece of equipment or this one. And half the time I'm not even the one coming up with the ideas. Like Chris, you were like wanting to do the double slit experiment in the saloon. I just happened to walk in there. He's setting all these lasers up on top of this piano in the bar. I'm like, hey, this is cool. And so we just pull the cameras out and start capturing it. And now it's got like tons of views on TikTok, and that video hasn't even come out yet. But stuff like that just happens on the fly. And I try to treat the camera like it's all my crew. It's like my Patreon followers. It's all my subscribers. Like they're looking through the camera. And so I'm trying to bring them there and have them be right alongside us as another person. So that's kind of how I treat my cameras, just like it's another person there right in the room with us.
Yeah, man.
It goes to show there's like an appetite for real investigation as well. Like you say, for raw first takes, you know, just pouring it out there and putting yourself out there. Like we all get frustrated with the format that they have on History Channel, where it's like 3 minutes of footage, and it's just like, you know, is there dye in the water for 50 minutes? 50 minutes for that. It's so encouraging to see that there's actual content out there where people aren't kind of not mucking around, but not adhering to that commercial, you know, standard three ad breaks an hour, you know, that kind of thing. You're not doing that. You're treating your audience intelligently, and I think people respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just came off a close to 2-hour private meeting on our next trip to Colombia in April next year, and what I'm taking away are things that I've seen since we went out, you know, earlier in the year. And then by watching things that Carl's done and that, then I can be like, well, if I can take a little bit of that and add it to this, what we've done before, and then take it to the next level, then, you know, this influence and everything that I can piece together to emphasize what we're doing down the road, these things are going to like just benefit everybody, whether it be the investigators or the viewers that see their final output when we film it and stuff and put it out, you know. So, hey, everyone's a winner. You know?
Right. We have to strip away this idea that you need like a whole big team. I get sent emails and talk to people all the time. And they're like, I want to get like a whole truck that's like a Ghostbusters vehicle that has all these sensors and this and that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I get it.
Sure.
Or they want to form like a whole team, but I'm telling you, there's a huge advantage to being able to just like throw a backpack on and have a whole array of portable equipment, sensors, night vision, infrared, infrasound, all of that stuff, and just carry it in my backpack and then use my cell phone and a selfie stick and go out there and just get the whole job done like special forces. And I don't have to wait for anybody. I don't have to fake anything. I can go immerse myself in the environment. And if there's something there, if there's an actual mystery to explore, then you don't have to make anything up or need anybody else there. It does its own job. And all you have to do is put yourself in the environment, and things, you know, there's plenty of avenues to chase and try to figure out what's going on to answer your questions and debunk things along the way. And man, Mount Wilson Ranch is loaded. It's hundreds of acres of abandoned mines, ancient ritual stone circles and caves of ancient dwelling sites and pottery and arrowhead fragments. And then you've got one of the oldest standing saloons in North America. And the amount of like paranormal stories go like all the way back into official government research teams and programs during the Reagan administration. And so, I mean, it's just thick. And when you get in the deep end and start swimming around, you want to keep it simple. And once you realize that that's gives you an advantage, then you can move a lot quicker. You can get a lot more done. And so I can go like up to Mount Wilson Ranch and spend like one weekend up there. And if I'm really efficient with my time, I come back home and I have, you know, a whole month's worth of content in order to process through and try to edit and get out there and keep open source. But I can get in and get out. I don't have to get permission from anybody but Jeff. And he's just wants me to kind of be the gatekeeper and figure this place out and see what's going on. So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, you mentioned this. I'll just play your video here while we're chatting. But you mentioned about special forces, and that's what I felt like, Carl. You know, basically we just had the team there. That you get the right people in the right location, kind of a hotspot area. And you think of UAPX. You know, UAPX. They went down to Catalina Islands, and they were like, "There's UAPs everywhere." You know, it seems like if you get you don't even need that many people. Just I guess the right people with the right equipment in a hotspot like that. I think there's just stuff all around. You know, tons of footage. You guys must have seen that, Vinnie and Dan. You know, from Phenomenology. You know, from your Colombia trip. So how is that going? Do you guys want to talk about that at all? Do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really exciting meeting.
For sure.
Yeah, let's hear about your Phenomenology.
Vinny's jumping at the bit, so Vinny should say, go ahead, Vinny.
I am. I mean, this has been, you know, season 1 was so successful from a research point of view. Like, this was all filmed and put out as an independent documentary series. That was kind of secondary. That was like, if that does good, great, you know, but the research itself was always the focus of what we were doing, from the way that the team was chosen and everything like that. And now, almost a year later, we're going into arranging season 2. And we've got the core team back, the original core team of myself, Dan, Ashley Cowie, Walter Payne, and some new team members, which will be announced in the next few days. And we're lucky enough to have made some really good plans for season 2 as far as the way we're going to look at it scientifically. We've got people in Bogota, Colombia, from an astronomical point of view, people that have been working in the subject for decades that we're going to be interviewing and looking at. We're looking at climatologists and things like that. So we're coming in from the bottom and we're working our way up to the kind of unknown. We're not coming up from the top and working our way down. We're going, let's go scientific first and then cancel everything out and go from there. And it's going to be incredible. And this is just because it's going to be planned so well. And this is just the beauty of the team. I'm just so proud to be a part of something like that where we can actually be boots on the ground. So, yeah, I'm slightly put off because Chris is going through my IG right now.
Well, for people that don't, can you just explain, basically basically what phenomenology is and how the people in the audience can find it and watch it?
Absolutely. I mean, phenomenology is a study of a 400-year-old light phenomena that appears in a small valley in rural Colombia. There are archaeological records of this phenomena appearing on this certain peak mountain on the edge of the Andean plateau. In the archaeological records 400 years ago, these are could be considered earth lights, but one thing is that the indigenous people and the locals consider them to be UFOs. This has been something that's been passed down through generations, and so we have heard these stories. We have the head of the investigation lives in Colombia, in the valley in front of the mountain that the lights are seen, and he has photographed them a couple of times in the last sort of 5 years on and off, to the point where we can start pinpointing maybe some correlation with times of the year where they're more visible. So last year he just decided, do you know what, let's just put together a team, come out here, spend 2 weeks really hitting hard, trying to investigate this. Let's interview locals. Let's look at that mountain constantly. Let's look at it with, super cameras and all this stuff. And that's exactly what we did. We went out there, we interviewed so many people who saw this light phenomena as UFOs, who saw this as ancient souls of the Muisca tribe who had committed suicide by jumping off this mountain when the conquistadors invaded their territory. So there are so many aspects to this phenomena that we kind of did all of it to do the investigation. And we were lucky enough to film something anomalous on the face of that mountain during that series. And now we're going out there just to continue the process, because yes, it's been good to see something in season 1, but we want to know what it is that we saw and what we filmed. So we're now reaching out to some of the best scientists in the capital city of Bogota, at the astrological sites. At it's just expanding and expanding. This could be something that goes on and on, on and on. We relate it to the kind of things that happened back in the early 80s with the Hestalan Valley phenomena with Erling Strand. That was something that's even still ongoing now, almost 40 years later. So we're just determined to continue investigating something until we get answers, whether it be scientific, whether it turns out to be prosaic. It's just, it's scientific, but I'll always say that it's an adventure, because when you travel halfway around the world to the rural valleys of Colombia, it's going to be exciting. So
I got a question for you now, Vinny, then.
Sure.
So with all the research and everything you're doing, I'm going to speak for myself here now.
Yeah.
In all my time doing this now and going to these locations and looking, even doing different variations of the gateway method and CE5, all this kind of stuff, I have yet to see what I would describe as a flying saucer that I would say came from another planet, like a craft. But I have seen lights, I've seen orbs, I've seen shadow figures, light shapes, different things like that moving around in the sky and even coming out of the ground and moving around and coming up to me. And they're always tied to these indigenous, native people locations where there has been a tragedy or a large gathering of people that suddenly
Yeah.
vanished or something like that. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm not seeing flying saucers when I go to these locations that are supposed to be UFO hotspots. What I'm running into is like indigenous people, paranormal phenomena, and then
Yeah.
meditation experiences, out of body experiences, weird dreams, the hitchhiker phenomena, all that kind of stuff is what I'm running into when I'm just being honest. So what about you?
That actually kind of resonates with the way that I feel about what we experienced. That's the way I feel about it now, is that we may have come across some kind of prosaic phenomena, but something that is still quite unknown to science because it's so rare, because it's situated and pinpointed in certain aspects around the globe, but it's maybe associated with valleys, peaks, and mineral makeup of the ground. So we've got two mountains where we are that sit opposite each other with a few kilometers between, one in a positive magnetic charge, one in a negative. We've got sulfur-based rivers underneath. So it almost forms a natural battery that pushes out this incredible bursts of energy that we just don't experience or know much about on this planet, that could, in theory, be utilized to form some kind of energy source. I mean, this could be some kind of future energy source. This is because it's so unknown. We don't know about it. So, you know, when I go out there as someone who investigates, let's say, UAP, I'm still more than happy to come up with a prosaic explanation for something that could still lead us forward when it comes to science and things like that. So I'm just an open book when it comes to that. I just want to be true to myself and be true to the subject that I'm looking into.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's where, you know, we're finding that too. And Lehto, you can speak to this, what we ran into a lot up at Mount Wilson Ranch. And it's the same of what a lot of the side research that I've done for Brandon Fugel around Skinwalker Ranch has to do with that geology, how basically the mountains collect the snowpack in the winter, and then as it runs off and goes into the aquifers, it creates some sort of a strange battery system that goes underneath these locations that creates strange frequencies or energy that can have paranormal side effects or affect consciousness or give off a different sort of radiation, and that it could be heavily associated with the geology of the area, and why you know, it could say why this goes back you know, tens of thousands of years into indigenous cultures, because it wouldn't matter if you just walked or lived over the land and tried to live and sleep and hunt there. You might have all kinds of strange effects on consciousness or be able to perceive reality in different ways, almost like you're going on a DMT trip, when really you're just walking over some kind of infrasonic signal that has a strong theta waves, you know. And that's really what we're exploring and finding at Mount Wilson Ranch, as well as these thick Schumann resonance frequencies that are coming from particular areas that are known to be paranormal hotspots.
Yeah, that's the other interesting thing from Mount Wilson. You know, it's on a large mountain, well, 7,000 feet. You know, could there be some weird structure under the ground that's causing these kind of strange occurrences? And then, like Carl mentioned, Chris Bartell was saying the same thing, is Skinwalker Ranch is basically, you have all these native Indian artifacts, you know, so could there be some strange resonance or, you know, issues like that with the burial grounds or some nature that basically paranormal, like we're talking about Indian effects?
Or some kind of, you know, even some people think there's something buried, under the ground at Skinwalker Ranch. And we've been told similar stories about Mount Wilson Ranch, all very specific details, honestly, that I'm not given permission to talk about quite yet. But there is supposedly something under the ground transmitting a signal, but what that is, we don't know. But we are finding weird.
Yeah, it's so interesting. The teams went there. The same teams went, you know, to Skinwalker. Bigelow owned Skinwalker, he owned Mount Wilson Ranch. You know,
right.
The same teams went to Skinwalker, also went to Mount Wilson Ranch. It's just coincidental, it seems like.
Including the psychic spies that were doing remote viewing, you know, at Stanford. They were going to both places, and there's photographs of them visiting both locations too. And so you wonder, like, were they there because they were pretending to look for UFOs, but they were actually trying to like amplify their psychic abilities by going and visiting these locations that were already peaked, or, you know, and just sitting in these resonant zones? Or were they going to these locations because there is like a rift or some kind of a dimensional reality thing that's occurring because of the way the geology is, and they're exploring that? And so who else would you bring there other than remote viewers to try and explore it? So it could be a mixed bag kind of both. And that's really what I think.
That's really interesting, because of conversations I've had about things that happened around 1980 and slightly prior to that with the Rendlesham Forest incident, because off the coast only a few miles was Cobra Mist, which was a secret program where, you know, there were potentially lasers and death rays and all these kind of wild theories about what could have interacted with the phenomenon or whatever happened in there over the 3 nights to do with the Rendlesham Forest incident. And that becomes highly confidential, but Stanford Research Institute went out there. They sent people out there for quite some time to a certain area of the base on Bentwaters, which nobody had access to. None of the RAF in the UK, none of the US Air Force. And these are the things that have been left out of that kind of research. So these are things I've been looking at, digging into a little bit, trying to ask the questions. I mean, there's very little out there that's not classified or people don't want to talk about, but it all kind of fits into kind of what Carl's saying. And yeah, it's really interesting, because whenever you hear SRI, it's like, I want to pay attention to this because of where it fits in with timescales and energy weapons and all these kind of things. So man, it throws up so many questions.
Yeah, and they kind of hide it and they kind of don't. You know, right now we've got Gary Nolan going around talking about Havana syndrome and showing these, you know, MRI scans of people who've had contact with UFOs and everything. And this kind of stuff borderlines and edges on these strange laser physicist experiments with directed energy weapons and all kinds of things. And so then it gets really weird. And again, we're talking about, like, is it one or the other? Are they using this type of technology to explore the phenomena, or is the phenomena like a cover to use to experiment with these types of programs? Or I don't know. It's very, very sketchy when you get on the fringes of it. But also interesting that these teams it's almost like they had a mixed bag of interests everywhere they went. So if they went to Mount Wilson, they were doing a whole list of things, and some of it is a little sketchier than others, and maybe why they want to keep it secret, you know, because it might be a little bit unethical when you peel it back.
Absolutely.
Well, we already had like the involvement of the MUFON data, I think it was the Bigelow boat, and that got a little sketchy with how they were using it and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot that is just kind of left out of those stories that is better left unsaid, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I've got leaked information and stuff. I don't really feel ready to share and talk about, you know, Lehto's seen some of it, whether it's real or not. I mean, if it's real, it's tied into programs that go clear back into the 70s and 80s that are highly unethical and questionable. And the names have just revolved and changed. And if people knew where and how it was associated to some of their favorite places, they might be shocked.
That's what I was just going to say. It might take one case from one location to come out to be revealed, to then boom, boom, boom. It links so many other locations, now we know, like, this whole band of places around this certain era, this certain decade, all make sense now. And we can kind of put that to bed, let's say, or go off in another direction of research.
100%. Yeah, it's fascinating as long as you don't get too close.
Right? I can imagine it's a bit mind-bending, to be honest.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, don't plan your headquarters there. But I guess that is the idea, right? To put a UAP Society, at least kind of little study station there. Or I know you'll be there, Carl, but I'll try and set something up as well. Maybe
that's the whole idea. Is that Mount Wilson Ranch is a great opportunity for us, because Jeff is so open-minded to keeping it open source and getting answers to his questions too, that he's always had his whole life. He finds himself the owner of the ranch. It was previously owned by Bigelow, and all this strange stuff happened, and the previous caretakers, plus all the locals and everybody that I talk to that come up, and when they open up and share their stories with me, blows my mind. You know, the prominent members of the community there come up, and it's like they'll just flat out tell me that they think they've been abducted from their house their whole life, and or they've seen things appear in their bedroom and disappear and all this stuff. And so, you know, when you get open-minded to it and you go look at it, you start to realize, man, there was definitely something going on here, but it was a mixed bag. And so it's this perfect place. Jeff wants to get his answers. And so we have right there in the old saloon where all this paranormal stuff seems to occur. He's going to give us a spot right behind the bar there in the saloon to build a whole podcast studio station. And then the whole side room is going to be like a research lab that we can work and film in to do all kinds of experiments. We're even working with Dr. Parkenstein. I don't know if you guys know him off
Is
the
this,
TikTok.
is this, have you told everybody? Is it?
No, this
knowledge?
is kind of, should I kind of announce it?
Come on.
So we
I'm
have,
curious. I
Go
wanna
for
know,
it.
yeah. It's
so we have
such a cool story.
collaborations and stuff planned for early next year to bring in people to basically look at rebuilding some of Nikola Tesla's old designs to not only build free energy transmitters utilizing the resonant frequencies that we found at Mount Wilson and tapping into that, but also building other devices that he's pretty confident with the team that we have that we can build better, you know, like spirit box devices or ghost communication devices and spectral analyzers and you know, all this ghost hunting equipment. A lot of it is so pseudoscience, but we actually have a credible team of people that can reverse engineer a lot of stuff, and we're going to do this at Mount Wilson and actually have a headquarters to do it there. We're considering building like a scale replica of Tesla's free energy transmitter that he originally built in Colorado, but we're going to do it at Mount Wilson.
Hell yeah.
That'd be very cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
And if anything, if it just powers the ranch, that would be amazing. But if we could, so far they've successfully transmitted it. I think 900 miles. Somebody built a receiver and actually got turned on light bulbs in their house from this free. It's not free energy. It's just a transmitter,
Through the ground.
wireless
Yeah,
transmitter through the earth. Yeah.
Energy
Amazing.
transmitter.
Wow.
That was Tesla's thing, right? It's this giant tower, and you can use the Earth to transmit energy, basically saying that the Earth is charged, essentially. So
Right. And then we're
this kid transmitted in Texas using this tower energy like 900 miles.
Right. So the idea is these locations that are like potent for the UFO paranormal activity are also potent in the Earth's electromagnetic field, and that maybe that's what ancient indigenous people were tapping into. And so why can't we and explore that? We have a great place to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, the one thing, and I'm not going to lie, I'm going to be straight up. I want to come to Mount Wilson. First night, I want to be in that bar. I want to be up on the balcony in that spot.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, I want to go to bed in that end room on the end of the,
With the shaman.
where the shaman appears. Like, dude, like that stuff like is incredible. And if he can link into this kind of stuff, like I think everything about this whole investigation is so worthwhile to try and form answers from something that has been looked at for decades and by some of the best people we know in the research of the phenomenon. I mean, this is why it's just so interesting for me personally, because Carl is kind of, to me, taking on board stuff that, you know, was unfinished a few decades ago, and now it's been resonated with a new. Well, I don't know what the word is, but it's just incredible to see it that the people are out there, and it just so happens to be Carl, who I love to bits, and bang, we get to see that stuff on YouTube. I mean, what more could you want, man? So, yeah, kudos.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I mean, on the surface, a lot of it can seem a little bit, you know, mundane unless you grasp what's going on. Like you go watch some of my videos and there might be an uncut, like 10-minute segment like this part right here where Brent is doing infrasound in the old settler's cabin. But if you really follow the story and grasp it, what you realize is that we're going to these spots that have a multitude of like paranormal encounters and strange UFO sightings and stories and weird consciousness effects. And we're getting actual scientific data raw on the fly, catching it on camera with people who've never worked together before coming together. And we're going to these multiple spots and hiking around and getting evidence that there's this Schumann frequency. It's like right there where Brent is sitting with the infrasound in this this auditory spectrum that's just outside of the level that we can hear with your regular hearing. It's like a Metallica concert there. It's like this powerful theta wave frequency at 7, 14, 21 hertz, and this Schumann resonance, which is right at the potent psychoactive range. So if you were into like remote viewing or astral projection or out of body travel, you would try to build a room in your house and all these devices and put headsets on and play music to try and artificially create these effects that right here sitting in the meadow, you're swimming in it like an ocean of that frequency. And so it might be a clue as to why these remote viewers and psychic spies out of Stanford love to go sit there, because instead of sitting in some Faraday cage in an office in California, why not hang out and have a drink at the saloon and do your job? It's like way nicer, right? So, I mean, that could be a real clue to it. But what's cool is that if it's real, we can test it. You know, we can go to these spots like we did and put on like EEG brainwave scanners, do meditations, do remote viewing, do the same protocol that they were possibly doing, and actually record it and get the evidence and see if it is doing what we think, and actually test it for ourselves. And that's what we've been doing. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of what you've been putting out ever since the day one that you were on the ranch, is that we've not got an advertisement every 3 minutes, and you are putting in points where you get maybe 10 minutes sitting down on that. But for anybody that's genuinely interested, these moments actually do build up with excitement, because we're genuinely interested in that kind of thing. And okay, that might not be the general public that you might think might be out there on a network like Discovery or whatever. They might exist. We're going to keep that to 30 seconds. But seriously, when it's this kind of thing for people interested, 10 minutes is amazing. It does build up, like we're seeing the real thing in real time almost. And I find that exciting personally. So that's why I wouldn't say, don't change it, dude. You're doing good. Like,
thanks, man.
It's good.
I really like stripping away the illusions that it takes like a lot, like that you have to have a whole bunch of gear and all that. Because some of these hikes, I look around, I'm like, hey, Brent's got a backpack on, Lehto's carrying a backpack. We've all kind of got gear. I'm just going to take my cell phone and just go and be in the moment. And you do not have to overthink it. If you put yourself in a spot where there is already a mystery or a story, like you're going to have experiences. A lot of people are just too afraid to even go sit out overnight and really actually do it and stay up overnight in some of these spooky places. And if they did, they'd get a lot of their questions answered a lot quicker than waiting for some report to come out from the Pentagon, I think. That's my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
So is that why you're traveling, Dan? So what's your vector? What's your final destination?
So I'm aiming for Colombia for that first week of April, but I'm up here in Mexico City. I wanted to be here for the Our Lady of Guadalupe celebrations, to kind of partake in that and feel the energy and kind of those moments. That was incredible. I saw probably the best sunset I've ever saw from the shrine, and I was like, what, if I was inclined to become a religious person, this would probably do it. But it was amazing to me. I complained that I walked 2 hours to get there, and some people I met had crawled for 22 days straight. They had their whole family with them. They just took their time and came here, and it always makes you wonder. Essentially, the story was that in I think it was like 1531 that somebody experienced a marine apparition. A light being appeared and identified itself as Mary Magdalene. Now, if that happened now, we wouldn't call that a religious apparition. We would call that a being encounter, or an other dimensional being, or a UFO encounter. And I thought it was really interesting to kind of just experience millions of people coming to the shrine to celebrate, what everyone in this room here is here to get some answers to. Then from here, I'm going to head down to a bunch of different Mayan sites like Teotihuacan and Chichen Itza and stuff like that. I'm just going to, exactly like Carl said, I just want to be in those places and feel the energy and see what happens, see what I see, and kind of pick up stories from locals as you go, because not everything's online. You speak to people, you find out a lot more, probably like you found with the petroglyphs of Mount Wilson and things like that. There are just things that people don't talk about because they respect them. And they don't want those areas kind of being ruined. Then, I'll end up in Colombia, which will be for Holy Week. We've designed this trip around Holy Week, which is when the lights are meant to be most potent. So we're going to have a bunch of thermal cameras up on the mountain there. We're going to be watching the mountain. We're going to be going up there and kind of shining torches and seeing if the signature matches what we filmed. Personally, I don't think it will, but you've got to do it anyway because you've got to get the science done and compare the data and get that low hanging fruit. And we'll just start building a picture basically of what we're experiencing there. There was a funny story that I thought of earlier, Carl, when you were talking about how everyone in the areas kind of has their own experiences and their own perspective on the experiences as well. And when we were going up Waika, we got talking to the police who were escorting us up there. And we asked them, have you seen the lights? And they laughed. And we took the laugh to mean they don't pour any stock in it. And they turned around to us and said, no, we don't call them lights. We just call them UFOs. And that was the police, and that was their experience of it. Some people say there were saucers flying around the mountain. Other people say Mary Magdalene walked through the town. And then you have people like, Vinnie, who take the tack, they see the same phenomena and they have a whole different take on it. And it's so important that we kind of get all those points of view and bring them together because as we're learning, the universe is kind of mind and it's made up by our projections and the crossover and the overlap between us all. And so it's important to consider the phenomenology of these experiences and not, throw away the idea that red means something different to Carl and to Vinnie. Like both of what you have to say about the color red and how we make it feel is important.
Chris, if you want, I can give you a little 2-minute exclusive. If you let me share my screen, I can give you a little clip.
100%. Yeah, of course, man. Where's your screen share? There
it is.
100%.
It just gives you a little impression of where we were at and the things we were looking at. It kind of gives you an impression of the valley, the mountain.
That's super cool.
Hey, look at the V in the mountain is the same at Mount Wilson. How it's like a big diamond-shaped wedge that comes down into the valley. It's exactly the same.
This is the marathon. Oh.
So the lights generated, and right down there's where the Moiskas jumped to their death. 400 of them. Yeah, Jimenez Quesada chased the last 400 Kazakis up here, and they threw themselves off this point. That's why so many people believe these lights are the spirits or the souls of these dead Moiskas.
I'm going too far down.
It was very powerful. Just you can't see it, but over this way is Mohoy, which is the place we were at a few days back, which is kind of the seeding hill of this one. And the lights will travel across and come to this hill. Currently, I'm standing in a positive magnetic anomaly. Mohoy is in a negative one, and the lights tend to come towards where I am.
Only thing there's something going on in the valley. If you look at Project Hestal, it's been going on since the early 80s, and they've added equipment over the years and really refined their investigating. And I think that's what's needed here. There are so many similarities. I'm not saying it's exactly the same phenomenon because we just don't know.
I don't know the geomorphology of the area.
There you go.
Much...
You get an idea,
Cool. No, it's great, man. I wanted to keep watching. Yeah, it's so awesome. And now, that backpack that Brent had, if you noticed in our videos, he had so much equipment in there. Like technology now has miniaturized, so we just don't need the giant. We don't need the giant film crews. Carl films on 4K on his little iPhone.
Yeah, we did that season 1, and now going out next time we've got tri-field meters. We're getting drones with a bit of flare, maybe thermal, maybe LiDAR if we're lucky. But we're still figuring that out. We've got a few months.
Have you looked at like the Cosmic Watch that UAPX had? Have you guys?
Well, it's funny because when we went out last year, I was speaking with UAPX and they were like, if we can get and meet up halfway in New York, we can give you the Cosmic Watch and do all this and that, but it never worked out. So it hasn't worked out yet. Maybe for season 2, it's a conversation that still needs to be had. But this is the thing. Season 2 might turn into season 10 years down the line. We've not put a limit on this. All we're doing is we're trying to do it step by step. If that becomes an annual thing, then great. If a biannual, then even better. But some of us are traveling half the way around the world to get there. But there's no end to this. If we mentioned Project Hestalin in there, that started in 1982, still goes on to this day. We just don't want to put an end date on this.
We need a European site.
Wow.
I heard in Spain, on the border of Portugal and Spain, there's some crazy lights.
Since doing that, I've been contacted by many people saying similar. I guess I'm committed to one thing at the moment.
Yeah.
If I could be funded to go and do other things around the year, then great. It just, personally, I can't fund that, but you know how it goes, like I'd do everything if I could, if there was 600 days of a year.
There you go, Tom. Or Tom King just said he what was that? I was told to go build a cosmic watch. Tom King, do you guys know him? He was on my show he was on UAP Society last week. He has an amazing,
I did see it. Yeah.
He's got tons of cameras up. Yeah. There you go, Tom.
Get in touch.
Watch, build a couple of those suckers.
Hell yeah, man. Please. We need all the help we can get. But this is the thing. This is, like you say, decentralized. It's citizen science. There is no external funding from any corporate or big entities or anything like that. It's just purely, we want to get out there and do it for ourselves and not sit around, So
it's super fun too. I mean, you go out there. I learned so much. It was tough being gone, with all the travel. It is far, but it was so much fun just being in that group. Everybody's motivated.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
so cool.
Well, what I love as well is like the shortcuts that you can use with each other. So like when we're all talking to each other, we can use language that we can't use around, say our parents, for example. If I said the hitchhiker effect in front of my mom, she'd be like, the what? Whereas to you guys, it's a loaded term and you know exactly what I mean when I say it. And kind of like you would say in earlier, Carl, about the frequencies and the resonance and all these kind of, death rays and the weapons they use in there and how they kind of create these psychotropic effects. All of that is kind of, it's packed into conversations and just words within those conversations when we all get together as a group. And it's delightful. You get so far in a conversation, I bet if all four of us were in a bar, within 3 hours, we'd have a couple of solid theories we could go and test with science, just by talking the talk.
100%. That's what's amazing is like we get together and it was like you have Chris Bartell, he worked for 6 years actively, 8 years total, like at Skinwalker Ranch. And when you finally get him talking to Brent, talking to Lehto, and then talking to me, and all these puzzle pieces come together, like all of a sudden it's like, wait a second. And we try to capture that and film those conversations, but suddenly things that like Chris Bartell was asked to do, like when he's working his night shift as the head of security at Skinwalker Ranch, it never made sense to him. Why am I sitting in Homestead 2 and my job tonight is to try and like levitate a button with my mind or move a thing with telepathy or whatever? Like, what does that have to do with my job as a security officer? Fast forward all these years later and we're sitting together having these conversations and the pieces come together because we've put it all together, digging through these locations and trying to solve the mystery. And now he kind of fathoms like things that have been said to him, experiments that he was a part of, and the whole bigger picture than just what he was told on the surface when he was doing the job all that time. So there's something about coming full circle and healing all of that for him too. And not only him, there's a lot of people that Chris works with and knows and a bigger picture. And now, Jeff and the owners of Mount Wilson Ranch now, that whole community, like I said, is affected by this. And I got worried going up there. And when you start doing this kind of research that you're going to get rejected or thrown out or people are going to criticize you, like, don't come up here and ruin my town. But honestly, everybody has been like super awesome to me and excited to talk to me. Like they've been waiting their whole life to get answers and they're excited for my videos to come out. Cause you just cut through all the BS and you just like meet them face to face when you go there in person and just get over yourself, but I don't know. The whole thing has been really surprising is how it getting together just puts all those pieces together. Cause you realize this book that I read fits with what you read and what you found out. And all of a sudden it's starting to make sense,
And none of us can consume the whole subject, right? Like we've all got to admit that our time is limited. We can only read so much. We can only watch so much. So yeah, faster alone maybe, but further together for sure.
And finally, what about Calvine UAP? I don't.
Yeah.
So what's going on with that, or any updates or anything?
I get asked this every day by multiple people.
Sorry, man.
No, it's great. I love it. The investigations are very much ongoing. And one thing that I always say to people is that we find multiple avenues to go down when it's looking for the witnesses, the pilots that may have been involved, and anybody that worked in that area who might have known. So we spend a week or two going down these avenues, hitting brick walls, swiping them off. So, that's a few weeks. And then you add all them together. We're 4 months since the release of the image. I feel like right now we're on an avenue that may lead to something. But again, I can't say that and I can't promise anything. The one thing I always do say to people is that as soon as we know, we will put it out there as an announcement. But the work that's going into this is like rigorous forensic, diving deep to the point where we've got people in Scotland going to physical offices for looking for historical records. We're doing literally everything physically possible we can to evolve this story, because we're not just content with putting out an image and going, that's it. It's certainly bigger and better than that. So hopefully in the new year we'll have something to announce. It's interesting. That's all I can say without spoiling anything, because
that's what Dan said about time. And what I find is, my audience doesn't like to hear when I research something and don't find anything, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
I made a few videos where like, hey, I researched this and that's not a UAP. And it was like, people are like, why are you making this video? But that happens a lot. We do a lot of research, I think, behind the scenes that doesn't make it to the cuts.
Exactly, man. And there are twists and turns in this story, almost like a murder mystery that you see on Netflix. It's crazy, some of the stuff that we come across, some of the names, some of the people involved in this, whether it comes to intelligence officers or people in Scotland who worked with these people. We're still trying to figure out how it all gels together, because it's crazy. It is not straightforward. And I think that's what will be exciting when we finally get to announce some kind of future update. So just bear with us, people. We're doing what we can. It's 32 years on.
Yeah.
We got to speak to Chris Mallon about it when I was in New York.
Yeah.
I took him aside for like 5 minutes and just recorded a little bit of audio, because he tried to investigate Calvine and he was stonewalled, and he said unfortunately he doesn't know more. I would say unfortunately he's been speaking to Nick Pope, as considering him the expert on the case, which I wouldn't say is the case. David Clarke has been stooped in this for God knows how long now, and the guy's just, he found the photo. What can we want, So we're gonna kind of get David and
asked. He was waiting like 30 years just to be asked.
It just goes to show stuff is out there.
It was motivating for me. Like, damn, man, like I should be asking more people, if they have photos or something.
Yeah, right.
I think
all someone had to do was say, hey, do you have it?
You should ask all the public affairs officers, like, did you work as a public affairs officer?
I guess the only thing that's slightly exciting to anybody that's into the research is that we spoke to a defense intelligence officer while looking for the photograph, who confirmed certain things, who we have since spoken to literally 2 weeks ago, who was involved in the case here in the UK and in the US when it comes to the Pentagon, the CIA. So for anybody out there that still thinks this is a hoax photograph, we've spoken to people directly that work with this, who traveled to private meetings in the Pentagon about this photograph. It's certainly not fake, but we don't know much more at this time. So it is an enigma, and it's interesting and it's addictive, and we're still going at it.
I think my favorite fact during your kind of investigations was when you found an official that kind of whose name matched, and they were like, I wasn't in Scotland at that time. And you're never gonna get, unless you can read that guy's mind, you're never gonna get much more out of him. But it was one of those moments where it was like, wow, this is a potent conspiracy theory waiting to happen.
Yeah. We think we found it. We think we got the answer, and boom, stonewalled, or we hit a wall and we're back to square one. And this is the thing, that could be 3 weeks. And then we have to go all the way back and go again down another avenue or another rabbit hole. And man, we're not going to give up until we get somewhere, or until we think that, we know people are deceased, unfortunately, or we know that they just have disappeared for whatever reason.
Yeah, I love the seriousness and just methodical, dedicate, like a boa constructor, just trying to get to the information. I really appreciate it. So, super exciting. I'll go ahead and end it here, guys. Let you guys get all back to your Sundays. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Always a pleasure.
very excited for all your stuff, all the things you guys are doing. I hope you, feel comfortable coming to UAP Society. You're always welcome on the channel, man. If you guys have anything you want to release, just let me know.
Thank you so much,
more than
Chris.
happy
And
to-
Appreciate that, man.
Super
thank you.
fun.
Keep up the good work. Carl, again, keep up the good work, man. You're an inspiration, man. Love you to bits.
Yeah, you guys all
It's
gotta
nice
come
to.
check it out.
He's the
Yeah,
leader, man.
definitely.
Making the leader.
I'll add it to my kind of travel list, and,
Put it
and
on
I'll,
there.
I'll meet you there.
Just let me know.
Yes.
You go, Shirley. All right, guys. Everyone, thanks for being here to all our members. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put in the comments for the future. I'll hound these guys to come and answer them. All right, guys. Take care.
Yeah, of course.
Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
Take care, guys.